Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right, everybody, we are back, and I'm joined by David Frost. Hey, David, how are you today?
Living the dream. Thank you. A great day to be alive, even though your Yankees and my Padres took that early exit. But it pains me to say that, so to speak.
David, well, it's nice to see you, and maybe you can start off by reintroducing yourself to the audience in case they never saw the program before. A little bit about yourself and what you do and your practice.
Well, goodness, that's a long history. I call it 70 years of joking and jockeying around. But in this chapter of my life, in my encore years, I'm a master fitness trainer, and I decided to become an author. So since we have video, there's
nice.
That's what I came up with 3 years ago.
Beautiful.
My sequel is strong to say, but in both of these books, one of the key things is addressing daily life, and one of those topics is pain. Pain is a 4-letter word. Dean Koontz says we shouldn't deny it or fear it, but pain is with us. And I'm a simple guy, so I talk about simplifying when I can, whether it's 5 rules for addressing pain, 5 M's, or what I call pain. And my approach as an alternative to polypharmacy is process pain and improve your neuromuscular status or performance.
Can you tell me about those 5? Can you tell me about those 5 M's?
Love to, and maybe we can get into them. I say that pain being more than a sensation, if you can remember 5 M's of alternatives to prescription or non-prescription drugs, I offer mutts, meaning pets, Fido or a cat. Then I mean mates, loving and laughing with mates. Monoamines, that's a fancy name for your happiness hormones like serotonin. When your serotonin is up, your cortisol is suppressed. And with breathing and other techniques, these happy hormones can kick in our amazing bodies and address pain, whether it's chronic or acute pain. Then we have music, soothing music, you choose it. By the way, the House of Pain, some call it a few-hit wonder. One of its great songs is Jump Around, and motion is one of those 5 M's. So let me check here if I hit all 5. Mutts, mates, music. Motion is lotion. I missed motion, but although I mentioned it with jumping around by the House of Pain, and those monoamines, using your biochemical processes to counter naturally pain. Our body, these monoamines, some of them resemble, believe it or not, morphine. And I would much rather people generate their own morphine-like substances than think about listening to the doctor who unfortunately still prescribes opioids, I believe, more than it should. Right. Now, on individual cases, Casey, I'm sure there are wonderful times to use opioids, but there's a reason why we have an opioid epidemic, and I think we would have heard much more about it had we not had that other epidemic that was called COVID.
Right.
So we have a huge problem, and I think it's our societal trend to take a pill as a solution. That's called sick care. That's not healthcare, and I'm in the healthcare business. So, and you and I probably joke about Patch Adams, that wonderful clown-like doctor, very provocative things. He talks about a pain paradox, where he kind of shared, if I can paraphrase, why is it that the news is almost always bad? Why is it that NFL millionaires can play with their balls? And that's a quote. And we honor NFL players playing with their footballs more than we honor teachers and those that can make life and living gratefully. So those are the 5 M's, Casey, that I think if people can remember: mutts, mates, motion, music, and those monoamines, those happy hormones that you can generate naturally.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, let me get back to this thing called pain. Yeah, there are 2 dimensions. Now, what are those 2 dimensions? In this thing that we call pain, right?
Right. And, I joked earlier, it pains me to say that our favorite sports team, those millionaires playing with their balls, but there are physical and emotional sides of pain. A heartache could be the emotional side, but the physical pain could be a migraine headache. And it could be chronic or acute. So this kind of branches off into details. And this is such a fascinating yet sad topic that I'm sure we'll run out of time before we talk before we run out of
We
interest.
do a part two.
It pays me to say we have 25 minutes, Casey. But physical and emotional, our neuromuscular system, if you get close to a hot flame, certainly there's going to be physical damage. But then there's a platitude, and in our business, like in many businesses, platitudes sometimes stick with you. There is no pain without brain. So the sensory part is the nervous system, the central nervous system that processes pain and does extraordinary things. I think we've all heard about an amputee who still, quote unquote, feels her or his leg.
Yeah, it was at that phantom pain or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. And the nervous system is extraordinary for doing crazy things. If you have, let's say you did too many bench presses as a workout, and it's great to have good back, shoulders, and chests. But let's say you get a twinge, which turns into acute pain, which means ow. But it doesn't mean that it hurts you. The definition of chronic pain operationally is something that changes your daily life for about 3 months. And there's a second category if it affects you for about 3 months, but affects your work or your play. So there's two levels of chronic pain, but chronic means lasting. And oftentimes the chronic pain gets into the central nervous system, and the sensory or the emotional pain drives what is no longer physical pain. So those are the two dimensions that we kind of talk about, the physical and then the sensory or the emotional, mental side of that 4-letter word.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe you can talk about how pain subjectively and objectively changes as we get older.
Oh, yes. There's some sad yet verifiable statistics. Arthritis, back pain, migraines, and migraines are operationally defined as side effects like nausea, can't stand light, vomiting, where that's different than a tension headache or a hangover headache that's short lasting and non-recurrent, hopefully. But that's about 2% of our population. So, believe it or not, more women than men. Also, that's true. More women than men report the suffering of fibromyalgia, which is just the nervous system has problems dealing with this 4-letter word called pain. So as we age, we need more tune-ups.
Okay.
And believe it or not, those 5 M's, motion, mates, music, motion, and the monoamines can help address the aging process. As George Burns said, and he lived to 100, we have to get older, we don't have to get old. As we age, what do we do about arthritis? Well, there's different types of arthritis, but let's just talk about osteo, joint arthritis,
okay.
Not the AID rheumatoid arthritis that's an autoimmune deficiency. But let's talk about, as we age, our joints, if they don't move in particular, there's genetics as well. If your parents had arthritis, maybe you will have a higher prevalence of gaining osteoarthritis. Yet with motion, keeping those joints moving, even if slightly uncomfortable, I call it get close to the door of discomfort. Again, pain, brain, get close to the door of discomfort to move. We're not a pine tree. We're not a fungus. We're meant to move. And sometimes arthritic joints are helped by motion. And I say, do you really need to take an over-the-counter anti-inflammatory when you can move or do simple things like move your joints and hopefully see how far you can go in traditional treatment before you resort to drugs, either over-the-counter or prescription drugs. So
yeah, and are you finding that people are having low back pain as they get older? Eventually, that they're going to have low back. But it seems like everyone has.
It's I don't have this statistic. If we do follow on, we can drill down to some of these statistics for fibromyalgia or lower back pain. But why I got into physical training was I blew out a disc. I had a herniated disc. And after my prehab, post-hab, long rehab, I decided I don't want to do that again. But guess what? In my case, it was muscular. It wasn't functional. Other than the herniated disc, what caused it I had a spinal misalignment because my core in my middle ages, at the age of 49, my core did not support my spine. I herniated a disc, and the rest is history. But that got me into personal training and writing books and things like that.
Okay.
So oftentimes, and there are 1,000, probably more than 1,000 YouTube, many of them very helpful reactions and ways to address lower back pain. If I would offer two, one is the good morning, the traditional worship the sun, just kick out your glutes and stretch your lower back with your core tight. I always say pressing your belly button to your backbone activates the lower back muscles and your glutes. The more the glutes can, and the core, the frontal core can activate and respond, the less your back is strained. We sit too much.
Yeah.
And some men carry pains in their back. But then we have posture, we have bad activities, we have lifting a heavy suitcase incorrectly now that we're traveling again. There's so many aspects to lower back pain. Golly, we could talk about that for a whole show, I'm sure. But my number, so two things. One, motion is lotion, back to the 5 M's. And I would say just two simple things that almost anyone can do, even if you're seated. Sit tall, belly button against backbone, and worship the sun, bow down. The second, I say the floor is your friend for many things to address pain. The dead bug, which is kind of, you stretch with one arm and the opposite leg to get as long as you can as your belly is pressed against your backbone, and you stabilize your spine. So back pain it's a high percentage, and I'm sorry I don't have it exactly, but it changes as we get older, as you mentioned. And many folks can alleviate or eliminate back pain without on their own, without formal physical therapy, which can get pretty pricey, or meds.
Yeah, right. I knew the way I got there somewhere, but maybe you can answer this. Are there any arguable benefits from pain?
Oh golly, what a great question. Thank you. There's a very, very, very small percentage of people who do not experience pain.
Really?
They do not get the feedback. If their hand is in an open fire, they don't know the sense and respond to pull away. They could bite through their tongue and not know it. I don't have the official term for those that do not suffer pain, yet I wouldn't want to be there. Pain is your body saying something isn't right. And if you take it to the extreme, there are some folks that don't experience pain and their lives are very, very, very tough. I dropped a kettlebell and broke my toe. Nice job, Dave, as a personal trainer, right? A very heavy kettlebell and a very shattered big toe, which still wakes me up every morning. But my bad, it just accidents happen, even when you try to be safe. But if I didn't feel that, well, in that case, no, I won't say maybe that would have been a good thing if I didn't feel that, ow. But yeah, so that extreme, and then the other extreme, you can say fibromyalgia, where these folks just say, oh, don't touch me. I don't want to move. I just want to sit here, because fibromyalgia can be such a wacky thing for about 2% of adults. And that's probably 2% of your listeners. So it's tragic. It's here. We can't avoid it. And that's why I thought it'd be not fun, but necessary to talk about something that we all face.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I never thought of it that way, where it could be a good thing. It's a very astute thing to say. That. What are some differences we talked a little bit before about? But can you expand on the differences between chronic and acute pain? Can you expand on that?
Isn't it, our language is so interesting. If I can go back to, I'm kind of a fan of looking at the origin of words. From both the French and the Latin, pain means literally suffering or penalty. And that fits for physical pain and sometimes emotional pain, a penalty. Not in the Christian days, Judeo-Christian days, oh, I did something wrong, so I'm being punished, that kind of thing. Okay. But anyway, so going from the original definition of pain, of suffering or penalties, is it a short-term thing? Perhaps the twinge, it's not muscle soreness, it was a twinge in your shoulder from trying to do too much with an exercise. That's an acute pain, which with rest, stretching, therapy, or perhaps an over-the-counter anti-inflammatory or a topical ointment, it goes away. And that's a good thing. Our body likes homeostasis. It likes to get back to normal. Yet, it's interesting that our bodies honor pain more than pleasure. That's a survival thing. And it's one of the many ironies of these amazing bodies of ours. We are wired, the eons and eons of evolution, we are wired to, in fight or flight, takes precedence over feed and frolic. So that's what we face. So acute means short-lived, hopefully episodic. Chronic operationally, Casey, is about 3 months where it doesn't go away, and you have to ratchet up your response with physical therapy, breathing, positive thinking, and hopefully avoiding intervention, a costly intervention by the sick care system. So chronic, 3 months, acute, episodic can hurt. I'm not saying doesn't hurt, but over time, our bodies do try to adapt to dampen the high levels of pain. And hopefully using techniques like those monoamines, those happy hormones, getting your serotonin flowing with restorative sleep can offset and dampen pain that sooner or later we're all facing. You probably have had episodic pains.
Yeah.
I have. Mine was chronic. After 7 months of trying to deal with my herniated disc, I did have intervention, spinal fusion, and so on. So there are occasions, but boy, let's do the best we can with natural techniques.
And now, speaking of, I know we're probably not going to have to. We'll have to talk about this next time too. But I want to get your thoughts on some alternatives rather than taking the painkillers and opioids. Thought maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah, if I could start with what Dean Koontz wrote, that notable author. He said, "Don't fear or deny it." So let's not fear pain, and let's not avoid movement. Let's not avoid happy times and laughter and loving, but let's not deny it either. Let's face it, and let's face the devil in the room, and let's say, "Hey, dude, I'm going to win."
Yeah.
It may take some time, but I'm going to win. So the idea of this journey of facing it is important. And those 5 M's, if I can fall back on those 5 M's, to get people thinking. It's a complex subject. There's chemical, there's mental, there's physical, as we shared. There's lots of aspects to this 4-letter word, yet we can address it to improve our neuromuscular response to physical or emotional pain. Breathe mindfully. It's why do ladies, when they're in delivery, natural delivery, breathe? Why do they practice that? They focus on other things. Many returning veterans that face things far more, I can't even imagine what some of those folks face with explosive devices and trauma. They resort to a technique called cognitive behavior therapies. They remember the happy times. And some say that's why those furry friends, those mutts, are so powerful as medicine. You see dogs in hospitals now because everybody remembers a cat or a furry thing and remembers the happy days, not the painful presence. So the mutts are important. Motion, as we said, is important for if chronic arthritis is with you or fibromyalgia. Maybe with expert help, you can move instead of pop pills. Maybe. And that's my hope and prayer, because it's expensive. Our healthcare system is expensive, as we all know, and we're all paying. I mean, you're paying for my Medicare. Thank you very much. But I prefer not to use my Medicare to pop pills. I prefer it for therapy. I prefer it for annual physicals and things like that. So the 5 M's: motion, mutts, music. Let me check my notes again, please. Mutts, mates, music, motion, and those monoamines. And we could talk about any of those for an amazing time.
Yeah.
The monoamines, our bodies can generate morphine-like endorphins and other monoamine chemicals that make us feel better. But we have to rest. Exercise relieves stress. All sorts of great reasons to move, because we're not a fungi, or we're not a pine tree. We're meant to move. So here you and I are, because of what we're doing, we're sitting. Next time we'll stand and do good mornings and dead
Right.
bugs. We're chatting.
Uh,
Promotion is lotion. Yeah.
okay. Well, what is oxytocin?
Yeah.
Is that would that fall into that category that you were just?
Oh, it sure does. Oxytocin is one of those monoamines. It's the hugging, the loving hormone. Even now, this again, back to the difference between Mars and Venus, men and women.
Mhm.
Men get a quicker response to hugging, actual hugging or other intimate acts faster than women. Don't know why that is, but that's a documented fact. So yay, guys. Just go in and close the door and hug yourself for a little while. You'll feel better because that generates, there's a huge difference between and OxyContin, the opioid, which has been in the news for lawsuits and
Yeah.
deaths and suicides and tragic, tragic things, because we're resorting to pharmacy instead of our natural hormones, those monoamines, such as oxytocin, the hugging hormone. Fascinating. And yet we don't hug enough. We're too busy. It's just one of those things of life that if we'd be healthier, improving our health span and lifespan if we generated morphine-like substances on our own.
Yeah.
Take that, drug cartels.
Yeah, and we're almost at the end here, but what can we do with those 5 M's? Maybe you can tell us more about the motion part.
Oh,
That
yeah,
because that's real interesting, and it's something that we should never stop doing, right?
absolutely. And as we chatted last time, Coach Bill Bowerman, the co-founder of Nike, said, "You're an athlete. If you can get up from a chair, you're an athlete. If you're breathing, you can move because motion is lotion." God bless Queen Elizabeth. She had the perfect lifespan, almost 96 years. She was healthy until a very quick, she wasn't healthy. She was
Wow.
gone. She said, "When you stop, you drop." I advocate strength training. It helps your bone density. It does so many good things. So my next book is about the importance of strength training. Yet we're alive and thriving because of stamina. When you move at the appropriate intensity level, exertion level, and generate sweat, guess what? That creates a positive cytokine trickle to help generate one of those monoamines, an endorphin. The runner's high comes from steady state, longer distance, investing the time. We're all busy, right? Oh, I don't have time to exercise. Well, I go, yes, you do. 3 10-minute sessions is almost as good as a 30-minute session, except for putting in the time, steady state, to generate the runner's high, the endorphin. I call it the rower's high now because I do a lot more time rowing than running after the spinal fusion.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a time investment, but I'm encouraging people to laugh more, but also to move because you may just be able to live with fewer pills. People my age, I'm almost 70, people my age take an average, a valid statistic, 5 prescription pills every day
Wow.
in their encore years. Not only do we not know the side effects of all those interactions of drugs, but we are putting a tremendous tax on the healthcare system, sick care system, because other people are paying for my problems. And I say, please, there are cases where you have to take prescription things, but do you have to take it all the time?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Well, I got to tell you, you're such a great guest, David Frost, and I know your new book's coming out. I think next year. I think
that's right.
it's okay. Okay, so you're working on that now. But let me give you the last minute here to let us know what's going on, how we can get a hold of you, anything that you want the audience to know.
Oh, sure. Thank you very much. Info at Well Past 40 is a great way to contact me. And if you have any veteran or first responder listeners who would like a copy of my book, just have them send a note to me at info at Well Past 40. I'll happily mail. And with that, not a gratuitous statement, but an honored thank you for your service. So any veterans or first responders that might want to hear a little bit about my 7S solution to dealing with pain, strength, stability, stamina, stretching, don't stress, anti-inflammatory eating, and restorative sleep, I'd be honored to do that. So info at Well Past 40, Well Past 40 spelled out FORTY is my website. And I just thank you for chatting. And I hope your listeners remember to breathe, to move, to love, to hug, listen to pleasant music, and avoid the house of pain.
Yeah. David, you're such a great guy and a great guest. Thank you so much. Can't wait to hear what you got to say next. Till next time, David Frost, everybody. Thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.